Josh Heupel, the recruiter, hasn't been good enough. It has at times, but a lot more room to grow. That and so much more. It's your Thursday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it. Your Thursday morning Locked On Vols, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Everydayers can do the show without you. Appreciate you guys for being here and checking out the newsletter over the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. Your number one spot for Tennessee news and entertainment weekday mornings right here. It's Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Cain. Again, host of Locked On Vols. Happy to be here. Of course, member of the VolQuest.com team, the On3 affiliate covering Tennessee athletics, and a lot to get into here today. So I'm going to step aside. Josh Ward is going to join me here in the first segment, kind of going back and looking at the class of 2022 rankings and talking recruiting, the downfalls, the surprises, the wins, all that and more coming up here in segment one. And then going to shift into a crossover segments with Locked On Razorbacks host John Nabors, Tennessee baseball and Arkansas baseball. Massive weekend series coming up this weekend. A lot of implications as well. So with that being said, I'm going to step aside. Here's my conversation with Josh Ward on Tennessee football recruiting. Josh Ward, how would you evaluate Josh Heupel so far? 4 years as head coach, 5 recruiting cycles, and the 6th one's ongoing right now. How would you evaluate Josh Heupel, the recruiter here at Tennessee to this point?
Yeah, I would say Josh Heupel has done a solid job. I'll begin by saying I think it's difficult to recruit poorly at Tennessee. Tennessee is too attractive of a place, has the resources, just has the investment in trying to get players. But I think Josh Heupel also arrived with kind of a negative perception of what he would be able to do, or at least it was one of the biggest questions. Nobody questioned that I heard, hey, can he coach offensive football? Or is he a good leader of a program? It was about, okay, can you get the necessary talent? Tennessee is not recruited at an elite level. Tennessee is not recruited at the level of what we see Georgia recruit at, or Texas with Steve Sarkisian. The Volunteers are not there, but they have recruited good talent. The roster has improved, I think, pretty clearly with overall speed, athleticism, the depth that has been built through recruiting, and the transfer portal has to be a part of that. It is for everybody. So I would say Josh Heupel has done a solid job in acquiring talent.
Through his first couple of years on the job for Tennessee, who has been the biggest recruiting win for Josh Heupel?
Biggest recruiting win. Okay, so I'm going to kind of talk through it. Players that would stand out of biggest wins. I think James Pierce Jr., with how good of a player he became and what Tennessee did to get him. Remember, he could have waited until the second signing period in February. Tennessee was able to get him wrapped up, and his recruiting ranking overall did not match what he ended up becoming as a college football player, in my opinion. So he would come to mind pretty quickly. From an evaluation standpoint, and then what the player became, Dylan Sampson would be up there. On the offensive side, there has not been a ton of success from recruited high school players to what's happened on the field so far. We still haven't seen a high school offensive lineman start. That will change this fall. At the wide receiver position, you have Squirrel White, but he's not going to outrank Dylan Sampson. So Pierce, Sampson, and then just up front on the defensive line, they've recruited really well. Arion Carter was a big win. Ricky Gibson was a big win. Those names come to mind, Carter and Gibson, because they beat out Georgia for Ricky Gibson, Alabama for Arion Carter, and we'll still see what level they reach as players. But I would probably come back to James Pierce Jr. and Dylan Sampson if I'm choosing a defensive and offensive player. But there are a bunch of guys up front on defense that qualify in this conversation.
You know, it's funny. Again, I re-ranked the class of 2022. That was Josh Heupel's first recruiting class, and that one kind of a big old. I don't want to say it's completely a mulligan because there's a lot of good players in this class, but like again, he was behind the 8 ball the entire time. He had no chance to get Ty Simpson, no chance to get Sam Horn. Settled for Taven Jackson. Of course, Taven Jackson's now in his 3rd program, but that was the class with James Pierce and Dylan Sampson and some of those guys. And when I re-ranked them, number one, still number one. It was number one. According to the On3 industry rankings, because On3 had him as the 11th ranked player in the cycle in the 5-star, whereas I think 247 had him as top 200. ESPN, of course, didn't even have him ranked, had him as a 3-star because they don't try in recruiting and some other areas there. But nonetheless, James Pierce stayed at 1. Dylan Sampson was my number 2, of course.
Okay.
And, Joshua Josephs, Tyree West. Jordan Phillips was number 5 for me. He didn't finish his Tennessee career here, but NFL draft pick Jordan Phillips from Maryland ranked in the top 5. But all this to say, the defensive line dominated in that class. I mean, 4 of the top 5 all in the defensive front. And that's kind of the theme, right? I mean, defensive line play has been really good with Coach Shop and Rodney Gardner, and offensive line play not been a whole lot of high school production yet, but to your point, that's going to change this year with David Sanders. Another recruiting win for Josh Heupel. We just don't know, how good he's going to be because he hasn't played yet.
Right. That one I can't grade out yet. It's no doubt a big win in terms of how highly ranked David Sanders Jr. is, his talent, his physical profile, beating out Ohio State to get Sanders. From that standpoint, we could argue that Sanders and Nico are the biggest wins. Now, no Tennessee fan right now is going to claim Nico is the biggest recruiting win, but they had to beat out the biggest schools in the country to get him. Of course, NIL was a factor with Nico. It was a big factor with David Sanders Jr. That's just going to be a part of it moving forward, so you can't ignore that aspect. But I need to see what David Sanders Jr. does. I've seen how it played out with Nico, and that's why I rank him lower. He's not on Tennessee's football team. He had a solid single season as a starter, but he's not the biggest recruiting win for Tennessee.
Where would Mike Matthews be in this conversation? Because a lot like David Sanders, you need to see more. He played some, but didn't play an awful lot, and he's going to lead that wide receiver room this year.
Yeah, there can be a whole group of, okay, let's see what happens. That would include Sanders, who we just talked about. That would include Mike Matthews, who's about to get a big opportunity. That would include somebody like Jordan Ross, who was a big get, I think, as an athlete, as a profile, and a guy that will be in that next man up conversation of what happens defensively. But we haven't seen it yet from Jordan Ross. So Matthews should turn out to be a big recruiting win because I think his potential this season is still very high. And by the time he leaves Tennessee, he could leave as an all-SEC wide receiver. So at the end of this year or by the end of the 2026 season, Matthews should rank very high on this list. If we revisit this 12 months from now, he should make the conversation. If not, that's problematic for Josh Heupel and Tennessee's offense.
Do you want to hear my top 10 from the class of 2022 in my re-rankings? Again,
I'd love to.
I'm no savant. I mean, this is clearly just my opinion, but James Pierce 1, Dylan Sampson 2, Joshua Josephs 3, Tyree West 4, Jordan Phillips 5, D. Williams 6, because of course he's returning kicks in the National Football League. Squirrel White 7, Addison Nichols 8. That was one of the biggest losers. He's still in my top 10 because he started and played a lot of games in the SEC last year on the offensive line. He's transferring over to a playoff team this year. We'll see what happens. Jason Jenkins, the biggest winner of this group. He was the 21st ranked signee for Tennessee in that class. Remember, he was the lone one in February from the state of New Jersey, no longer with the program at Florida State. But he jumps up to number 9 in my rankings. Chaz Nimrod at 10, and then Jordan Thomas at 11. Simply put, Jordan Thomas, I mean, he'd play an awful lot. He's just not healthy. That's not right. It's not his fault. But when you work to the back half of that class, I mean, the last 5, I'll tell you this right now, and this is a horrible issue. The last 5, Cameron Miller, remember him, no longer here. Maurice Clipper Jr., offensive line. Masai Reddick, offensive line. Brian Grant, offensive line. And wait for it, do you remember this name? Savion Herring, offensive line, that lasted just a couple of months. So, again, for the first 5 in my re-rankings of this class, defensive linemen. For the last 5 in my re-rankings of this class, offensive linemen. So that it goes to show you what needs to be trending up. And, of course, again, David Sanders, some of these other ones here lately. We'll see what happens. Let's shift gears here real quick. Got a couple more minutes left with you. Proposal out there, depending on what the House settlement does and all that this summer. Proposal out there, I believe it was presented to the AAC leaders at their spring meetings about potentially going to an OTA style, NFL style, having 5 of those to spread out throughout the months of May and June, potentially incorporating that with spring practice, going from 15 to 21 spring practices. OTA style workouts. That's something I would love at the college game. I mean, it's already amateurism's out the window. Continue to adapt a lot of what the NFL does and making it a year-round business. I think OTAs in early summer would be so much fun. Could you see that happening?
Yeah, I could. I think the entire offseason needs to be reworked. That includes the portal window, free agency, essentially. We call it the transfer portal. We really should just call it free agency.
Yeah.
When you're actually available to go sign somewhere else. And that conversation has included maybe a window in January instead, a 10-day period, something like that. That to me makes a lot more sense. And yeah, restructuring the time that is spent on the practice field and exactly what that means. They still can figure out the coaches, how hands-on everything is, voluntary, involuntary. I would be curious to see how that would all play out. But a different structure than the 15 practices, one of which might be a spring game if school tries to go with that. And if they do a spring game, we know it's not actually a spring game. So, yeah, what the model has been for college football historically doesn't make as much sense now. And when you throw in the money and the fact that the athletes will be paid and they're professionals in a lot of ways, because this conversation is football, it's not other sports, then yeah, what the ultimate professional level is doing, the NFL, makes a lot of sense for college football. Why wouldn't their offseason mirror or be very close to what the NFL's is?
The Athletic reported early last week that the SEC or ESPN willing to go up to 50 to 80 million more for the SEC to have that ninth conference game. With playoffs expanding or thought to be expanding in 2026, probably to 14 or 16 teams. Feels like leader in the clubhouse right now is probably 16 teams. That ninth SEC game shouldn't be that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, money talks. So in the next 2 or 3 years, is the SEC going to 9 games? And if that is the case, are we going to go back to that 6-3 model conversation? And if that's the case, who are your 3?
Yeah, so first of all, what you said, money talks is everything. I can look at a league going from 12 to 14 to 16 teams and say, well, they should obviously expand the schedule. If they're going to expand the league by 33% over a 12-year period, why wouldn't they expand the schedule? Well, the answer is, well, they're not getting money to do it. If they get money to do it, makes more sense. If you're expanding the playoff even further and you're getting more automatic qualifying spots, that makes more sense. So I think that's where we are heading. It's a matter of the timing to get it wrapped up here in the next few months with meetings that will take place, both with the playoff and the SEC. So the model, you asked the 3 teams that I would choose for Tennessee. I would like to see Florida stay in there, but Alabama is where the conversation starts. And then after Alabama, I think a conversation is around Vanderbilt, Kentucky, South Carolina. So if that's realistically where it goes, then I would say Alabama, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina over Kentucky would be my choice. I recognize the history and the amount of time that is taking place with Tennessee and Kentucky. I am more interested in Tennessee and South Carolina, big picture, zoomed out each and every year.
Gosh, man, from a personal perspective, nothing about South Carolina excites me, playing them every single time. Not like
to be
good,
clear, it doesn't for me either. I'm trying to be realistic of what I think it will be.
Yeah.
And I think those are the schools that will be discussed. Alabama, to start out, that's non-negotiable. Vanderbilt, it's got to play somebody. It has to have 3 teams on its side too. So, of course, Tennessee is going to be one of those teams. Yeah. So what's the other spot? I'd love for it to be Florida. I hate the idea of Tennessee, Florida going away on an annual basis, but realistically, I think it would. So I would choose South Carolina over Kentucky because I think those would be the 2 remaining contenders or teams considered.
These conversations were alive and well a couple years ago. Maybe they're going to be starting to circulate again. If the SEC goes to 9 games, and then we're going to talk about that format, the 6-3 will be tossed around again. 6 permanent opponents, or 3 permanent opponents, 6 rotating. Of course, we'll see what that all looks like. Josh Ward, a lot of different topics here today on our hit. Appreciate it as always, man. I know we usually do it on Wednesday, but we did it on a Thursday this week.
Hey, Monday through Friday. Happy to hop on with you. We're doing that on Josh and Swain every day. So thanks, and we'll talk again next week.
The days are getting longer, the weather's warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all, and the prices that can fit your budget. I love the mix of styles that they offer. Wayfair makes it super easy to find pieces that match your vibe without spending a fortune from your wallet. The delivery is free, it's hassle-free, even for the big stuff. Whether you're entertaining guests or just relaxing solo, Wayfair is there to help you unwind. So, shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Go outside with Wayfair. Head on over to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Wayfair, again, that's every style, every home. Wayfair.
Eric, I know we've talked a lot because it seems like Arkansas's played each other in I guess all the major sports at least this past academic year, but this is going to be a very big one. So we'll just start right there. Tennessee season, how it's gone. Is it lived up to the expectations? Is it lower? Is it higher? Just what's the overall vibe right now in Knoxville for this team?
Not good, right? And you know, I say this on my show all the time, and my everydayers probably get so tired of it. But fan is short for fanatic, right? I mean, there's a reason we're here. There's a reason you and I are doing these shows. There's a reason everybody tunes in and listens and watches and all that. I mean, we are obsessed with the team that we cover, the team that we root for. And so to answer your question, has it lived up to expectations? Hell no, absolutely not. Having said that, it's really difficult as a fan, short for fanatic, to keep things in perspective. This team just won a national championship, okay? That just happened in the last calendar year. That's awesome. I mean, that will never be taken away. That's incredible, right? And I actually went back and did some research, and it feels like Tennessee's at rock bottom right now. Oh, no, no, no. In the last 10 years, from all the past SEC national champions, and there's been several. I think there's only been a couple that have not been from the SEC, Coastal Carolina, Oregon State, Virginia,
You had
maybe
to bring
one
up
year,
that
but the rest
one.
been the
Yeah.
SEC.
Yeah, you had to bring up that
They
Oregon
have,
State. Thank
outside
you.
of Florida in 2017, Tennessee has the best conference record the next year than any of those guys. I mean, Ole Miss was abysmal. Mississippi State was abysmal. LSU was 13-17 after winning the Natty a couple years ago. So it feels bad right now. Tennessee has dropped 5 of 6, 4 straight. I mean, it feels bad. But again, if you try to keep perspective, and that's a tough argument right now, it's really, really not that bad. End of the day, Tennessee just needs to win a weekend series. Tennessee needs to find some consistency in the bullpen. Tennessee needs to hit better with runners in scoring position to overcome some of the pitching issues in the bullpen and some of the shaky defense. More than anything, Tennessee just needs to win a series in order to have some momentum heading into this next phase of the season, which is the postseason. So it has been started off really great, 120 straight, number one team in the country, and then started off the SEC slate really good. This has been a better team on the road. It's been a team that's not played well at home, which is really, really weird.
Well, you mentioned Arkansas and Tennessee, obviously both in different situations, but we were talking before we started recording. Arkansas is in a situation where they've lost 4 of their last 5 series in the SEC, but it doesn't feel like it. Even here in Arkansas, it doesn't feel like it. Now, I don't think everybody's just jumping up and down, being like, man, this is the greatest team ever, and this is Omaha all the way. It's not to say that it hasn't been met with some criticisms or some frustrations, but it just doesn't seem like a team that's lost 4 out of their last 5. It could be chalked up to maybe just the SEC, and that's how good they are. It could be chalked up to maybe what I think more likely is Arkansas fans are like, who cares? Postseason. Yeah, that's all that matters, because Arkansas has been a national seed the past 2 years, and then they didn't even get out of their home regional. So it's almost like, yeah, we don't even care if you're a national seed because that hasn't mattered before. So just get to the postseason. It seems to be that that vibe, but both teams kind of going into this, it feels like, not saying it's a must win, have to win it or whatever, but man, it'd be really nice for either one of these teams from their respective perceptions there to win this series, to end the regular season on a high note. I think Arkansas is going to be a national seed, especially even if they just win one game, but man, it'd really be nice to solidify 2 out of 3 to get to that national seed. What's kind of Tennessee playing for in this particular series against Arkansas?
Well, I mean, compared to Tennessee, Arkansas is sitting pretty in terms of a national seed, right? I mean, the latest Field of 64 projections, you would know better than I am, but if memory serves me correct, D1 Baseball had Arkansas, John, I want to say 3 or 4. Maybe that's off, but they had Tennessee as the number 2 seed in the Morgantown region. So what is Tennessee playing for this weekend? Number 1, it's just play for yourself. It's pride, right? But number 2, it's if you have any hope of hosting an NCAA regional, you've got to win this series. Some Tennessee fans were talking, yesterday during the midweek game, maybe if you just win 1, like you'll still be okay. Heck no. Like if you win 1 on the road at Arkansas and still drop that series, nobody's going to make Tennessee, in my opinion, a national seed losing 6 of their last 7, unless you go on a run in Hoover and win the championship, which Tennessee's done twice in the past, 4 seasons. So not saying that's impossible, but Tennessee very much playing just to kind of ride the ship a little bit, get back on the winning ways, but more importantly to, still be in the hunt for a postseason, hosting right for an NCAA regional and not even thinking about supers right now. So, On three had Tennessee projected as the 15th seed this week. D1 baseball had Tennessee as the number 2 seed in the Morgantown regional. So on the road, I think this team plays better on the road. So that kind of gives you some confidence going to Fayetteville. But this is also a series, and Tennessee hasn't played at Arkansas much lately, but hasn't won since 2015 in Fayetteville. Tennessee is 1-9 against the Hogs in the last 10 matchups. It's a program that doesn't have much success against in the Tony Vitello era, really. And so there's a lot of things Tennessee's playing for, but more than anything, you're just playing to have a winning weekend, because you've had one winning weekend in the past 6 weekends, and that is just not good enough. And it's weird because prior to speaking with your colleague Andrew earlier this week, like from an outsider's perspective, I'm just Tennessee, and I mean obviously I'm looking at scores around the SEC and all that, but it dawned on me that Arkansas is going through a very similar thing, as you pointed out. But you don't think about that because, as you mentioned, Arkansas swept number 1 Texas a few weekends ago. So that's what I think of when I think of Arkansas here lately. It's like, oh, they just took down Texas, really, really good team. They're also struggling. So abundant storylines heading into this weekend for two teams that are just so desperate for a winning weekend.
So let's look at a little bit of the strength and weaknesses of these teams, because with Arkansas, at least where it stands right now, they have just been wildly inconsistent. And it seems like such a cliche in sports, but it's true. I mean, there's been times where Arkansas starting pitching has looked as dominant as anybody. I mean, Zach Root has been awesome for the most part this year. Gage Wood had a great showing against Texas, but then he had a poor showing this past weekend against LSU on the road. Some of the bullpen has been up and down. The hitting, situational hitting especially, which was the biggest problem last year for Arkansas, it's been better this season, and the offense has been there. If you look at just the runs scored and everything, but there's been times where in clutch situations, runners at second and third with no outs or 1 out, you get nothing. So it just seems like the inconsistencies have been there for Arkansas, where they're not really weak in one particular thing. You just never really know what you're going to get. If Tennessee's going to win this series in Fayetteville, what is going to be the reason why? What are they going to lean on and rely on if they're going to walk out of here with at least 2 or 3?
Yeah, in my opinion, if Tennessee's going to win this series, obviously it starts at the top. And at the time of this recording, the pitching probables for the weekend have not been announced. I mean, I would absolutely assume that Liam Doyle is going to start on Thursday. The only reason Liam Doyle wouldn't start on the opener, he'll start one of these games, but the only reason Liam Doyle wouldn't start the opener is because he's dealing with a little bit of a blister, has been the last couple of weeks, and this is 1 day short of rest. And any kind of a funky series with Auburn 2 weeks ago where for some reason they started the game, he pitched at the top of the first inning, and then it was suspended for rain, and then he came back on Sunday and pitched see if you can keep up with this. He came back Sunday and pitched the conclusion of game 2 of the series in extra innings. So all told, that weekend, he had 2 appearances of like 57 total pitches. But anyway, he made his next scheduled start last week, and he looked good. He was dominant and all that. I would assume that he's going to start on Thursday, but regardless, Tennessee has got to get an elite start out of Liam Doyle because Tennessee's been playing well behind Liam Doyle to begin weekends, and then it's kind of tailed off from there. So you've got to have good Liam Doyle, which he's been dang near elite all season. And then from there, I mean, Tennessee has got to hit better with runners in scoring position. The at-bats were better. I thought the offense was better, scored more runs last weekend, but you're still leaving too many men on base, still not hitting well with runners in scoring position, and your bullpen's struggling, and your defense at times is struggling. And in years past, your offense has been so good that all that stuff goes unnoticed, like it overcompensates. Well, right now, you're kind of struggling at the plate with runners on and runners in scoring position, all that. You're not scoring enough runs to overcompensate for that, and you're losing ball games. So, I mean, Tennessee's offense has got to come along. Liam Doyle has got to, kick off the weekend with a great start. And, more than anything, Tennessee's bullpen, I mean, there's so much talent on this team. I mean, it's littered with MLB prospects. Tony Vitello won the draft last summer by getting so many talented freshmen on campus, but they're young. They're experienced now, but they're still going through it. And this bullpen is had some big holes in it this year for some guys that you're supposed to rely on. So offense has got to come around, and Liam Doyle has got to lead the way if Tennessee's going to have a chance of, they obviously have a chance, but Tennessee's going to win this weekend series.
You mentioned a name, and we're going to talk about said name because not only is he a big deal in Tennessee, but he's a pretty big deal here in Arkansas. It's Tony Vitello. We're going to talk about more about him coming up next here on a Locked On crossover of Locked On Hogs and Locked On Vols. All right, getting into the final segment of a Locked On crossover between the Locked On Razorbacks and Locked On Vols. John Nabors alongside Eric Cain. Now, Eric, I feel like Tony Vitello, after winning a College World Series title last year, probably could have run for governor, and a lot of people would have voted for him. He seems to be that level. And as I always love to tell your audience and all the Tennessee fans, I appreciate you guys holding on to him for your coach until Dave Van Horn decides to retire, and he becomes the Arkansas head coach because that's what it's all about. But talk to me about Tony V. I mean, I know that they had that little thing in 2021 that still gets referenced, even though they're best of friends with Dave Van Horn and Tony V. But just how do fans, after winning a title like that, it seemed like they loved him before, but when you win a championship, I mean, is there anything this guy can do wrong there in the state of Tennessee?
Well, I mean, certainly Tennessee adores Tony Vitello, has adored him for years, and certainly after the national championship, you're right. It's hard to love him even more. Now, I will say this. I mean, Tennessee fans still love Tony Vitello, don't get me wrong, but this season, again, perspective, going back to what we talked about in segment number one, it's been frustrating. Like, it's inconsistent playing, some in-game management at times. I think Tony at points in times has overmanaged. I think that, just like every manager does, I mean, you're never going to bat 1,000. You're never going to be a perfect coach, but it's been a rough year. It's been a frustrating year for Tony Vitello. And this dates all the way back to, trying to get Alberto Ozuna, eligible. And that's not been the case this year. And he was in a situation at Tampa where somehow he was eligible to play the Division II baseball, but not Division I baseball. But point is, it never got him eligible. And I think that's weighed on him a little bit. So it's been a frustrating year for him. I think the Alberto Ozuna situation's weighed on him a little bit. Losing here lately hasn't helped. So, he's been irked a little bit and everything. And, fans are frustrated, but certainly not like, fire Tony Vitello, nothing like that. This fan base adores him. He got kicked out of a game. I guess it was game 3 of the Auburn series a couple of weeks ago. And, it was pent up frustration from the entire weekend. And, he went around and he chewed out every single umpire and left. And the fans just ate all that up. So they love Tony Vitello. Tony Vitello certainly is going to have a statue outside of Lindsey Nelson Stadium at some point. You're right. He could run for governor and he would get a ton of votes. But this has been a frustrating year for sure. And I think that it's been a frustrating year for Tony Vitello as well. It's hard to keep winning after a national championship. It is very hard. And I think that there's some growing pains and some lessons learned this year.
Yeah, I think too, with Razorback fans and how they view Tony V, he was an assistant here for years, as everybody knows, and just loved the guy. Some of the best players Arkansas had during that stretch were guys that he recruited. I think about like Huston Kerstad. He was the number 2 overall pick in 2020 from Arkansas, and that was a Tony Vitello guy. Dude's great at recruiting and coaching, and I think everyone loved him. But then when that 2021 deal happened, when him and Dave got into it, there was a lot of Razorback fans just because, you get protective of your coach. They're like, hey, screw this guy. And then he starts winning, though, and you see him and Dave are best friends, and you're like, well, I can't hate this guy, though, because because Dave likes him then. And then it's also the prospect of, well, man, the way he compliments Arkansas and Dave, maybe he'd be the next head coach here. But then fans are like, wait a minute, though, those antics over there at Tennessee, we don't want that here. It just seems like it's a very complicated thing. And I wanted to ask you just and talk about the antics. I know at Tennessee, hey, if you win, especially if you win a championship, you can do it. And I will fully agree that Arkansas, in a place like Arkansas, is very much on the opposite spectrum. Like, they just don't do it, so people get used to it being done that way here. But you cover it. You watch it. I mean, does it even compute to you, or does it even kind of pop up on your radar anymore because you're so used to it? Does it something that you enjoy? I just want your thoughts on just the antics surrounding it and, flipping people off. And, what was it, the guy last week that hit the home run and just talked to every single fielder? He's running the bases. It's like, it's funny, but at the same time, I think a lot of people around college baseball just kind of get annoyed by it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and people around college baseball get annoyed by it because they were annoyed by it in 2022.
Yeah,
okay?
True.
That team was phenomenal. Number 1 overall seed, best team until the 24 national championship, best team in program history. Obviously came up short in the Super in Game 3, didn't go to Omaha. But that team was so good, statistically one of the best programs ever in college baseball. and they walked the walk. They backed it up. They talked. I mean, that was kind of the vibe of said team. They did a little bit of that in 21, don't get me wrong, but that was the 2022 team, okay? And then following that team that, in 23 and 24 and 25, the perception in college baseball about Tennessee baseball is from said team in 2022. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and say that Blake Burke, Christian Moore, they were quiet guys. I mean, they weren't. But for the most part, all that frustration still goes back to the 2022 team. Now, as far as this year, and you referenced Andrew Fisher the other day, Andrew Fisher, Liam Doyle, and you will see that very much all weekend long, especially from Liam Doyle when he's on the mound. Emotions on the sleeve, man. They don't hide anything. That's just who they are. And sometimes it's a bit extreme. Like there was a little dust up at home plate with a caught stealing with Liam Doyle that ultimately led to him being ejected a couple of weeks ago against Auburn. That was unnecessary, but that's what fuels him. He's gonna pitch up there. He's gonna talk. He's gonna look into the dugout, walking back after strikeout 3 to end the inning, all that and more. Andrew Fisher the other day, Tennessee is in such a rut right now. And so he hits that home run. It was Vanderbilt that went up early in the game. He hits that home run to give Tennessee a lead. And I honestly think he was just trying to create some juice. I would not have gone about it that way. But like he talks to everybody around the bases. He crosses home plate. He goes to the dugout. He looks up to this crowd and, says that this is our house and gets everybody. I mean, that place came unglued. So he was trying to create some juice. It didn't work out. I think that's more than what it was. But, this year really it's just those two guys. Hunter Ensley's the biggest competitor you ever meet. I mean, he's a Tennessee legend. He doesn't like losing, but, I think the majority, to answer your question, is everybody remembers that 2022 team, and everybody kind of judges every Tennessee team since then off that team. They play with swagger. They play with a lot of momentum, but at the end of the day, right now, it's just more frustration. I think they're just trying to create some juice to fuel a win, if you will.
No, they definitely create juice. I'll give them that. And you mentioned that 2022 team. And I hate even to admit it, but that still is one of the greatest regular season teams I've seen in college baseball to not win a title. I mean, they had like 56, 58 wins, and they didn't make it to Omaha?
58 wins, didn't make it to Omaha.
That's absurd. I mean, that is
Tennessee won the
absurd.
national title last year, and I mean, it was a dang good year. They had 60 wins.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. So they got a good thing going over there at Tennessee. And so, of course, Razorback fans, I got to ask you this, Eric. I know my answer. The chances that Tony V leaves Tennessee for a place like Arkansas when Dave Van Horn retires, I mean, him and Dave, if Dave just gave him a call, said, hey, Tony, I want you to be my guy that takes over after I retire at the end of this season. And in my opinion, Tony's like, Coach, I never thought you'd ask. I'm there. I want to be a hog. That's what I'm thinking. Your perspective, fan perspective, is Tony V a Vol for life?
Coming off a national championship, it certainly felt that way. And I'm not saying anything's changed. And I'm saying, it's been a frustrating year and all that. If anything, I could see Tony being one of those guys. And again, I don't know anything. This is just me speculating. I could see Tony being one of those guys that doesn't coach forever, early retirement, stuff like that. Will he end his career at Tennessee? I certainly hope so. I certainly could believe that. Wouldn't shock me if he doesn't. Wouldn't shock me if he went and tried to do something different, maybe in professional baseball and all that. But to your point, when, his mentor retires at a place that he spent a lot of time with, obviously he loves the fans and he likes the program and all that. That's going to be a huge, huge topic. That's going to be something that Tennessee's going to have to fight to keep him. I'm not saying he's going to go there. I'm just saying that's going to be dominating the college baseball landscape when that happens. Because, of course, Tony Vitello is going to be the first call. Now, having said all that, again, Tony Vitello has built, I don't want to say from scratch because there's been some good coaches and some good programs here before, but he built this program from scratch when he got here. Okay, it's been the winningest program in college baseball during his time. The stadium is being built because of him. You're getting, there's going to be a rev share. Baseball is going to get a piece of the pie. That's not going to be the case at all schools. Certainly schools that are interested in baseball, it's going to be. But Tennessee has invested in Tony Vitello. And, he's the highest paid coach in America. Tennessee has invested in Tony Vitello. Tony Vitello has returned that investment back to the program with a national championship. So he's happy here. It's been a tough year, don't get me wrong, but right now, can I see him leaving Tennessee? No, you're coming off a year winning a national championship, but certainly when that said scenario happens, it's going to dominate all the conversation and Tennessee fans are going to be worried just because, Tennessee fans will worry about anything.
Well, it's okay. I mean, listen, I know that you mentioned Tennessee having a rough year this year. I think Arkansas fans would gladly accept that if it meant coming off of a title, because that's the one thing that they are missing, man, right now.
Again, it's a rough year, right?
You're right.
40 wins.
Yeah.
Okay, rough year. 15 wins in the SEC right now. I mean, if this is a rough year, if this is what a rough year is under Tony Vitello, yeah,
Yeah.
sign me up.
Well,
for
no,
sure.
because and I know that again, Tennessee won a title, so it's different, but it'd be the same thing for Arkansas because they have won 18 games in the SEC once again. They have won at least 18 SEC games every year since 2018. I mean, it's just insane. As far as consistency goes, man, Arkansas is really consistent in the regular season, but they got to get back to Omaha. But should make for a great series. I'm really looking forward to that. Always a lot of energy, always a lot of juice in this one. I'm sure that Razorback fans will be very kind and pleasant to the Tennessee players, and I'm sure vice versa. Should be a lot of fun, but either way, you can check out the Locked On Vols podcast with Eric Cain each and every day for all things Tennessee.
Awesome conversation there from John Nabors, Locked On Razorbacks. What a big series coming up this weekend in Fayetteville. Tennessee and Arkansas, both teams, man, do they need a series win in the worst way? And then, look, it's Hoover, and then it's NCAA regional time. Will there be a regional in Knoxville? We will see, and I think this weekend we'll have a lot to say about that. So good conversation there from John Nabors. Go ahead and check out Locked On Razorbacks for all the Arkansas angle heading into the series, leaving the series, all that and more. Check out Inside Arkansas as well. Had Andrew Ellis on the Porch podcast this week as well. He and John do great work covering the baseball team over there for Arkansas. And big thanks to Josh Ward for stopping by. Talk a little Tennessee recruiting. We did the class of 2022 re-rankings earlier this week. We're going to do the class of 2023 re-rankings potentially tomorrow. That's coming up right here on Locked On Vols. Tell your friends, tell your family members, this is the Tennessee podcast for you. We are free and available wherever you get your shows. Please download and subscribe to us. Everydayers couldn't do the show without you. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Until then, have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.